The NFL draft is now over, and I know in my last video I had briefly mentioned the draft collectibles, and that's what I plan to go over a little more in depth today in this video. And just as a fair warning, before I attempt to explain all of this, they made it very difficult for even me to explain. So after I go over all of this, at some point, if you are still completely lost, it's understandable. No idea why they chose to do these this way, but again, that's just the way things have been this year. So as you all know, EA held a mock draft of their own with 32 representatives of the community, each to represent one of the 32 teams in the draft. The players that were selected in the mock draft each had their own collectible made with that team, with those cards stating that they were from the MUT mock draft. If you happen to collect all 32 of those mock draft collectibles, you could then choose to throw them in the MUT draft collection to receive a whopping 10,000 coins, the MUT draft snub, which was an 85 overall AJ McCarron, and a 99 overall Combine Warrior Dwight Freeney. Apart from the mock draft collectibles, each player also had 31 other collectibles from each of the rest of the teams, making the grand total number of draft collectibles the 1,024. So in other words, in order to guarantee you had all the draft player collectibles correct with their correct team, you needed more reserve space than the 1,000 that we are allowed to keep within our reserves. Which I might add, whoever thought of that must have been an absolute genius. On the day of the draft, they also released 90 overall gold path to the draft player cards in packs, one for each player drafted to their correct team. You were then supposed to take that 90 overall gold path to the draft card and the player collectible, combine those together in the collection to receive that player's elite version, plus a coin pack which gave you a chance to receive 1,000,000 coins. After the first round of the draft was over, there were 8 players from the draft with collectibles that did not get drafted in the first round. Any new players that were drafted in the first round which did not have a collectible, such as Jake Matthews, they went ahead and made elite versions of those players anyway. EA briefly mentioned that any of the remaining collectibles that were drafted in the later rounds would have a collection Monday, along with a Johnny Manziel collection. The problem was that this was not clearly stated which cards would be needed for the Manziel collection, so there was a lot of people who ended up discarding everyone who wasn't drafted in the first round. Because seeing as how they made elite versions of the players that didn't have a collectible in the first place, it would only make sense that the Johnny Manziel collection would only include all of those players from the first round. What really ended up happening was that everyone that had a draft collectible, even those that went in the later rounds, and the 2 which were undrafted later picked up, were given a collection just like the first rounders. So in the end, all 32 players which originally had a draft collectible were the ones that were used for the Manziel collection. Again, I have no idea why they chose to do this the way they did. It would have been so much easier on their part as well as on us if they would have done the draft cards just like they did in previous years, with each draft card receiving a different coin amount. Instead, they chose to make it more difficult than it really needed to be. Why Johnny Manziel was the one chosen to receive a Future Star card even though he was a late first rounder doesn't make any sense to me. Actually, considering we're talking about the ones who thought it was a good idea to make a Leon Sandcastle card for every position, I guess it does make sense. Either way, in my opinion, I believe Jadeveon Clowney was robbed. After all, he was the first overall draft pick, so rightfully should have been the one to receive a Future Star card. Because of all this confusion over the weekend, I was able to find a few of these draft collectibles such as Morgan Moses for 10 to 15k a piece. A lot of these are now selling for ridiculous prices. I've actually sold a lot of these for over 100k a piece. Why anyone would pay that much for these cards is beyond me, considering most of these cards you can actually buy the elite versions much cheaper. The only real reason I can think of is that I guess everyone is feeling lucky with that coin pack. Overall, I managed to do pretty good with the draft collectibles I received. I saved a lot of the draft packs from completing the Combine Warriors and opened them up on draft day. Ended up pulling a Clowney and Bortles, those were my 2 best. Also managed to make 1-for-1 trades on the trade block for Robinson and Watkins, so as it stands now I have the top 4. Really have no desire to finish the Johnny Manziel collection, especially with a golden ticket Vic which is soon to be released. I could do the collection, but as I'm understanding it, you receive no sort of incentive for next year for completing it. You do, however, if you guys notice, receive a rookie version for completing each of the top 5, so I'll probably go ahead and do those and sell the elite versions. Only reason why I would want to do them is for the fact that if you guys remember last year for completing the Future Star collections, we did receive rookie versions of those players plus a 5,000 coin discard. Of course, they made no mention of receiving coins for these, but just in case, I'm going to go ahead and do these anyway. So that's basically it for these draft collectibles. The cover vote cards were also just released, and hopefully no one got suckered into buying bundles, as these cards are pretty readily available on the auction block. I would say over the weekend you should be able to get these for 1,000 coins a piece. If you would happen to collect all of these, save them, as there will be a collection at some point. However, I wouldn't get your hopes up, as the reward is probably not going to be anything significant. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll have a golden ticket one early next week. Until then, this is Infamous, and I'm out. Peace.